The wedding was going perfectly until it was interrupted by a 10-year-old boy. He ran forward and handed a note to the groom, causing everyone to freeze in anticipation when the man opened it and read it, and a shocked silence enveloped the room. Don't forget to subscribe and write in the comments where you're watching from. The grand hall shimmered under the glow of an intricate crystal chandelier, its light casting a warm glow across the expanse of polished marble floors, while the scent of fresh roses and jasmine lingered in the air, mingling with the distant notes of a string quartet playing a soft classical melody. Rows of elegantly dressed guests sat in hushed anticipation, their eyes fixed on the beautifully decorated altar where the ceremony was about to take place. White and gold adorned every corner, from the delicate floral arrangements cascading down the aisle to the carefully arranged table settings awaiting the reception. At the center of it all stood John, the groom, his broad shoulders squared and his hands steady as he awaited the moment he had dreamed of for months. His dark navy suit was perfectly tailored, the crisp white of his shirt accentuating the cool blue of his eyes. He was a man of quiet strength, composed and measured, though those who knew him well could detect the slight tapping of his fingers against his thigh, a subtle sign of nervous energy hidden beneath his calm exterior. Beside him stood Sarah, radiant in an ivory wedding gown that hugged her slender frame before flowing down into a soft cascade of silk and lace. Her rich brown skin gleamed under the golden light, and her eyes shone with deep emotion as she held John's hands. The gown, with its intricate embroidery, had been chosen not merely for its beauty, but also for the symbolism woven into every stitch. Her late mother's lace carefully sewn into the hem, a tender reminder of the past, as she stepped into a new future. Yet, just a few feet away, standing slightly apart from the altar, was 10-year-old Tyler, dressed in a miniature version of John's suit. His tie, slightly askew from his own restless adjustments, marked him as the only one in the room who did not share in the jubilation that filled the space. In that moment, as every detail of the setting shimmered with promise and expectation, Tyler's small hands remained clenched at his sides, and his dark brown eyes were fixed firmly on the floor as he shifted uncomfortably from foot to foot. In stark contrast to the warm, hopeful expressions of the guests, his face revealed an unreadable storm of emotions brewing deep within. In this world of carefully polished appearances where everyone spoke in soft voices and exchanged practiced smiles, Tyler felt like an outsider, a puzzle piece that did not quite belong, forced into a setting where, despite the celebration, he remained isolated and alone. For months, Sarah had tried to reassure him with tender words and gentle gestures. She had explained that John was a good man who cared deeply for both of them, and that he longed to be a permanent part of their lives. Yet her reassurances did little to ease the lingering fear that had taken root in Tyler's heart, the fear of being abandoned or left behind. He recalled, in fragmented memories that blurred with time, how his own father had once held his mother's hand with the promise of forever, a promise that was cruelly broken when his father died. That loss had echoed through quiet evenings, in the soft murmurs of solitude, and in every time his mother tucked him in at night with the whispered assurance, "You'll always have me." Now, as Sarah prepared to remarry, that same deep-seated fear rose up once again, the fear that the one constant in his life might finally be taken away. The officiant cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention as he began to speak with a warm yet solemn tone, carefully choosing his words to capture the magnitude of the moment. John and Sarah turned to face each other, their hands still entwined, as John's voice began to recite his vows with steady resolve. He promised to love and cherish Sarah, to support her dreams, and to stand by her through every challenge that life might bring. His words were unadorned and heartfelt. They carried the weight of sincerity and a quiet devotion built slowly over time. In that moment, his voice was not that of a man swept up by grandeur, but rather that of someone making a deliberate, heartfelt choice to love not just in that single instance, but for every day that would follow. Sarah's gaze softened further as she listened, her own emotions welling up as she prepared to speak her vows in return. Her hand tightened just slightly on John's, anchoring her in the reality and significance of the day. Meanwhile, Tyler, standing quietly at the periphery of the ceremony, barely registered the exchange. His pulse pounded in his ears as he kept his eyes fixed on the small folded paper hidden deep within the pocket of his jacket. He had written that note the night before, sitting alone on his bed, staring at a blank page for what felt like endless hours until, finally, a single sentence emerged. "Please adopt me." That simple request, born out of months of quiet desperation and loneliness, now lay tucked away as the ceremony reached its peak. As John reached into his pocket and pulled out the wedding band meant for Sarah, Tyler's breath caught in his throat. He sensed that what followed would be transformative. In that precise moment, as John prepared to slide the ring onto Sarah's finger, a symbolic act that would seal their union, Tyler's small fingers curled tightly around the note. Overwhelmed by a surge of emotion he could no longer contain, he stepped forward and, with a voice that resonated with both vulnerability and determination, simply said, "Wait." That single word cut through the gentle murmur of the room like a clarion call. In an instant, the music halted, the officiant's carefully chosen words fell silent, and every eye in the grand hall turned toward the young boy. Shock, confusion, and disbelief spread across every face, while John froze, the ring still held firmly in his grasp. Sarah's expression shifted from joy to uncertainty, her brows furrowing as she tried to ascertain whether she had truly heard Tyler correctly. And though Tyler's heart pounded as if it might burst, he did not waver. Taking another deliberate step forward, his small hands trembling and his breath uneven, Tyler advanced further into the spotlight. All around him, the weight of countless eyes bore down upon him. Yet he refused to look away. His gaze was singularly fixed on John, the man who now stood as the symbol of both hope and fear. Slowly and deliberately, with every ounce of courage he possessed, Tyler reached into his pocket once more and unfolded the small note with clumsy determination. In that heavy silence, he extended the note toward John, his grip so firm that his knuckles turned white. Sarah, moved by a mix of concern and maternal love, stepped closer and softly called out Tyler. Yet his focus remained unbroken, his eyes locked on John. For a long, suspended moment, John hesitated before accepting the note. With an expression that betrayed nothing of the storm inside him, he carefully began to unfold the paper. Tyler's heart pounded in his ears, each beat echoing the profound possibility that the few simple words on that note might forever alter the course of their lives. At that moment, as if time itself had slowed to honor the significance of the act, the atmosphere in the hall grew impossibly still. A deep, heavy silence descended upon the grand hall, a silence so profound it seemed to muffle every sound. The once lively space, filled moments earlier with the soft strains of music and the vibrant murmur of anticipation, now appeared as though it were suspended in time. Every guest had turned their attention to the small boy standing at the front, his chest rising and falling in the rhythm of unsteady breaths, his fingers clutching the note he had so courageously presented. Sarah's face was a canvas of shock and concern as she struggled to comprehend the abrupt turn of events, while Tyler's own quiet yet urgent voice resonated powerfully in the stillness. This was not a mere interruption or a fleeting moment of childish defiance. It was a heartfelt plea laden with raw, unspoken truth. John, who had been moments away from completing the wedding ritual by placing the ring on Sarah's finger, now stood completely still. The folded note lay in his hand, its weight seemingly magnified by the charged atmosphere. He glanced down at it, then slowly raised his eyes to meet Tyler's, and in that brief, wordless exchange, a complex mix of surprise, empathy, and deep understanding passed silently between them. Around them, murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, soft, confused whispers intermingled with stunned silence. Some guests exchanged puzzled glances, while others craned their necks for a better view. Even the officiant, whose earlier demeanor had been one of confident authority, now appeared uncertain as he shifted his gaze between Sarah and the unfolding drama. Tyler, feeling the immense pressure of every watching eye, did not retreat. Instead, his small shoulders squared with a newfound determination, as if summoning every bit of courage that had been forged in a life of feeling overlooked. For far too long, he had lingered at the edges of life, watching others celebrate without ever truly being seen. Today, however, he made a bold declaration. He would no longer remain invisible. Sarah finally broke the silence, her voice soft yet trembling with emotion as she asked, "Tyler, what are you doing?" Her words carried both love and a desperate plea for understanding, a hope that he might allow her to reach him. But Tyler's gaze remained fixed on John. His hands were clenched tightly at his sides, and his breathing came in short, determined bursts. In that charged moment, John's fingers tightened around the note once more, and with deliberate care, he began to unfold it further. Slowly, the paper revealed its message, a single, carefully written sentence. "Please adopt me." Those simple words struck John like a tidal wave, overwhelming him with their raw honesty and unfiltered longing. They were the cry of a child, a desperate plea for the family he had longed for since he first learned what it meant to be alone. Sarah's eyes darted anxiously between John and Tyler, her heart pounding with an urgency born of maternal love. Taking another cautious step forward, she spoke in a voice laced with worry. "Tyler, this isn't Mom." Yet the boy, his tone quiet yet resolute, replied, "I'm not joking." In that single utterance, the depth of his loneliness and his unyielding desire for belonging resonated powerfully, as if every silent tear of the past had culminated in that moment. John remained silent, lost in a torrent of memories and emotions. He recalled the guarded way Tyler had observed him during their first encounters, the distance that had characterized every brief interaction, the silent mornings over breakfast, and the fleeting glances in the living room that hinted at both hope and fear. Now, on what should have been the happiest day of their lives, the boy had dared to voice a truth that cut through all pretense. John's chest ached as the full weight of Tyler's plea settled upon him. He swallowed hard, his throat parched with emotion, and realized that he had always prided himself on patience, on allowing Tyler the space to approach him in his own time. But what if all this time, Tyler had been waiting for John to prove that he would never leave? Sarah's soft, hopeful tone mingled with unspoken questions, and in that moment, John knew he could no longer ignore the child's heartfelt request. The note trembled slightly in his grasp as he gazed into Tyler's wide, searching eyes, eyes that held the fragile, undeniable hope of a child yearning for acceptance. John's heart pounded with an intensity that made him understand that love is not always measured in slow, incremental steps. Sometimes it bursts forth in one single, transformative instant. Without uttering another word, John dropped the note to the floor. In one swift, decisive motion, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Tyler. In that warm embrace, a gentle promise conveyed without a single word, a silent vow was made that Tyler would never again feel alone. For a long, suspended moment, Tyler did not react. His body remained tense and uncertain. Then, slowly, he allowed himself to lean into John's comforting hold, his small fingers clinging desperately to John's jacket as if afraid of being released. Overwhelmed by the surge of emotion, Sarah exhaled softly and reached out to caress Tyler's back, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears as the gathered guests watched in awed silence. After what felt like an eternity, Tyler pulled back just enough to meet John's gaze. His eyes, still shadowed by the pain of past losses, now flickered with the tentative light of hope, a new promise slowly beginning to emerge. John's voice, gentle yet imbued with quiet determination, finally broke the silence. "You don't even have to ask." Those few words, spoken with absolute certainty, resonated deeply within everyone present. Sarah knelt beside them once more, her voice barely a whisper as she tenderly called out, "Sweetheart." Though Tyler's expression remained guarded for another heartbeat, a flicker of relief softened his features, as if he could finally allow himself to hope. In that profound moment, the ceremony transformed from a celebration of a union between John and Sarah into something far more enduring, a moment that marked the birth of a new family bond. The grand hall, which had once been filled with the gentle hum of joyful music, now bore witness to a silence heavy with meaning and promise. Every guest, every whispered word, and every tear that shimmered in the eyes of onlookers testified to the significance of what had just occurred. With tender care, John picked up the discarded note, his thumb tracing over its slightly creased edges. Although the handwriting was uneven, its message was unmistakable. He read the note again and again in quiet reverence, etching its words, "Please adopt me," into his heart. John had long believed that actions speak louder than words, and that true love is built gradually through patient care and quiet devotion. Yet in that singular transformative moment, he understood that sometimes a single, honest act can redefine an entire life. For months, he had strived through small gestures and steady reassurances to show Tyler that he would never vanish, that he would always be there, not only for Sarah, but for the boy as well. Now, standing before the gathered crowd with unwavering certainty, John declared, "I would be honored to be your father." His declaration, simple and resolute, carried with it the promise of unwavering commitment and the hope of a new beginning, a beginning that shone as brightly as the crystal chandelier above. Tyler, overwhelmed by the sincerity in John's tone, remained silent for several long beats. Then, after what felt like a lifetime of internal struggle, he offered a small, almost imperceptible nod. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of overwhelming joy and relief. In that tender, transformative moment, the union was no longer solely between a bride and groom. It had expanded to include a child whose quiet plea for belonging had finally been answered. The officiant, having regained his composure, resumed the ceremony. John then gently slid the wedding band onto Sarah's finger, sealing their vows with a tender kiss that spoke volumes of the love they shared. The applause that erupted in the hall was not merely a celebration of their marriage, but also a heartfelt tribute to the new bond that had been forged between John and Tyler, a bond that promised stability, warmth, and a future where no one would ever again feel abandoned. As the guests slowly made their way into the reception hall, where soft music played and glasses clinked in celebration, the full significance of the day began to settle over everyone like a gentle rain. Conversations hushed, and many people reflected silently on the remarkable events that had just unfolded. At one of the small round tables, Tyler sat with his plate barely touched, while the adults mingled with warm smiles and quiet nods of understanding. In the background, John's deep, steady voice continued to offer unspoken reassurance, and Sarah, still radiant in her bridal glow, frequently cast caring glances toward Tyler, ensuring he felt safe and included. Throughout the reception, tender moments of connection punctuated the evening. Tyler exchanged shy smiles with John. Sarah's gentle reassurances and soft words wrapped around him like a warm blanket, comforting his wounded heart. Even the guests could not help but remark in hushed tones about the bravery of the young boy. An older uncle commented that he had never witnessed anything like it at a wedding before, while a close friend of Sarah observed that she had watched Tyler the entire time, moved by the depth of emotion reflected in his eyes. Others noted that a child does not make such a heartfelt request unless he has carried that longing for a very long time. In quiet clusters near the bar, family members recalled how deeply touching it had been when John had embraced Tyler, and how that simple act of kindness spoke volumes about the unspoken need for belonging. Later that evening, as the music softened further and the crowd began to thin, Sarah and her sister exchanged quiet words of hope and relief. Although the wedding had not unfolded exactly as Sarah had once envisioned, she realized that true perfection was not measured by flawless appearances, but by the raw, unfiltered truth of what it meant to be a family. In one final, moving exchange near the dance floor, John and Tyler shared a gentle conversation over a small plate of food. Tyler, still processing the magnitude of the day's events, softly asked, "Are you really going to do it?" After a brief pause, John replied with unwavering certainty. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't." In that tender moment, any lingering doubts evaporated as Tyler whispered a tentative "okay," and a small, hopeful smile broke through his once guarded expression. As the night drew to a close, the grand hall gradually emptied and the lights dimmed to a soft glow. John, Sarah, and Tyler stepped out into the cool, crisp night air. The soft radiance of streetlights and the gentle hum of the city outside provided a comforting counterpoint to the emotional intensity of the day. Walking slowly toward the car, Tyler's heart felt lighter, as if the promise of belonging had finally taken root deep within him. During the quiet car ride home, sparse conversation mingled with moments of reflective silence. Each word a gentle reminder that he was no longer alone and that his place in this new family was secure. Arriving at the family home, bathed in a warm, inviting light that made the building feel like a true sanctuary, the trio stepped inside with a sense of calm that belied the emotional whirlwind of the day. Although Tyler had lived in this house for many years, it had never quite felt like home until now. With John and Sarah by his side, the familiar surroundings took on a new meaning, a promise of continuity, love, and a future where he would no longer be an afterthought. In the quiet that followed, as Sarah changed into something more comfortable and John loosened his tie with a contented smile, Tyler settled onto the living room couch. He replayed the day's events in his mind, the overwhelming silence, the pounding of his heart, and finally, the warm, accepting embrace that had shown him he was truly seen. In that silence, the promise rang clear. He was no longer alone. Thus, on that unforgettable day, what began as a meticulously planned wedding transformed into a moment of raw, unfiltered truth. The union of John and Sarah was not merely a celebration of love between two people. It was also the birth of a new family, a family in which Tyler's quiet plea, "Please adopt me," was met with open arms and unwavering love. In that singular transformative moment, old wounds began to heal, hearts were mended, and a new future was embraced with hope, tenderness, and the profound promise of belonging. As the final notes of the reception faded into the night and the last guests departed in quiet clusters, the memory of that day lingered like a gentle promise. Every whispered word, every tender glance, and every soft touch exchanged between John, Sarah, and Tyler stood as a testament to the transformative power of love, a love that can overcome fear, silence, and years of loneliness. It reminded everyone present that even in the midst of life's most carefully orchestrated plans, the unexpected may emerge and change everything. Over the following days, the impact of that day continued to reverberate throughout their lives. John found himself reflecting often on the moment Tyler had spoken, and each time he recalled the unwavering hope in the boy's eyes, it renewed his commitment to the family he had chosen to build. Sarah, too, felt a deep sense of gratitude for the way fate had brought them all together, and Tyler, slowly but surely, began to open his heart to the possibilities of a future filled with warmth and acceptance. In the weeks that followed, small moments of tenderness blossomed into new routines and shared experiences. Mornings at the breakfast table took on a new significance, as John would greet Tyler with a warm smile and a gentle word of encouragement. Conversations that had once been sparse grew richer and filled with genuine laughter. Slowly, Tyler started to see himself not as an outsider, but as an integral part of a growing family. The echoes of past loneliness began to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence that he was, at long last, where he belonged. Family dinners, weekend outings, and even the simplest moments, watching a movie together or sharing a quiet walk in the park, became opportunities for healing and connection. Each shared moment built upon the foundation laid on that unforgettable wedding day, where a small note had changed everything. Over time, Tyler's guarded heart began to thaw, and the bright spark of hope in his eyes grew steadier. John and Sarah worked together to ensure that every day was filled with the love and security that Tyler had longed for, proving that the promise made that day was not fleeting but enduring. As months turned into seasons, the family learned to celebrate not only the big, transformative moments, but also the subtle, everyday acts of kindness that sustained them. There were quiet mornings spent in comfortable silence, afternoons filled with the gentle hum of shared stories, and evenings where the glow of the sunset reminded them of the beauty in togetherness. In every smile, every supportive gesture, and every word of encouragement, the lessons of that day remained alive, continually reinforcing the bond that had been forged so unexpectedly. The journey was not without its challenges, as the scars of past loss and loneliness can take time to fully heal. Yet, with each passing day, Tyler's trust in John grew stronger. He began to share more of his inner world, the dreams he had tucked away, the fears he had long hidden, and the hopes that had been kindled by that pivotal moment. John listened with compassion and understanding, assuring him through actions and words that he would always be there to protect and care for him. Sarah, too, became a constant source of gentle strength, her unwavering love serving as a reminder that family is built not only on shared history, but on the commitment to face the future together. In the end, the wedding that had once been intended as a celebration of the union between John and Sarah evolved into a profound testament to the healing power of love, a love that is patient, resilient, and transformative. The memory of that day, with its mix of joy, sorrow, fear, and ultimately, hope, became a cornerstone of their family's story, inspiring them to embrace every new beginning with open hearts. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to subscribe, share this video with your friends, and leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from. For more stories of unexpected love, new beginnings, and the quiet triumphs of the human spirit, be sure to check out the other videos on our channel.